The morning light filtered softly through the floor-to-ceiling glass panels of the conference room, casting long, sharp shadows across the polished marble floor. Outside, the city's hum was a distant murmur, muffled by the sleek architecture that housed the day's most anticipated gathering. Inside, the atmosphere was taut with expectation. A low buzz of whispered conversations, the clink of coffee cups, and the rustling of papers punctuated the silence as executives prepared for what was promised to be a high-stakes business meeting. The room, designed for precision and power, was an arena where decisions would ripple far beyond these walls. Serena Williams stepped into this refined space with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced the world's fiercest challenges and emerged not just unscathed but triumphant. Her presence was an arresting contrast to the sterile modernity around her. Clad in a tailored blazer that hinted at both authority and understated elegance, she moved with the grace of a champion accustomed to commanding attention without demanding it. Her eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the room briefly, taking in the polished faces of seasoned executives, the subtle hierarchies etched into their postures, and the careful choreography of their interactions. A few heads turned as she crossed the threshold, curious, intrigued, some skeptical. In the polished veneer of the corporate world, Serena was an anomaly. They knew her as a titan of the tennis court, a symbol of athletic excellence. But here, in this rarefied air of strategy and commerce, her presence was unexpected. The unspoken question lingered. What place did a sports legend occupy amid this circle of financial architects and dealmakers? The room's glass walls reflected the gleam of crystal chandeliers suspended from the high ceiling, their facets scattering flecks of light that danced across the faces of the gathered executives. The air was cool, conditioned for comfort but charged with an electric undercurrent of anticipation. Beside the long mahogany table, chairs were arranged with military precision, each seat a throne from which influence would be wielded. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint aroma of leather-bound portfolios, crafting an olfactory backdrop to the impending negotiation. Serena moved towards an open seat near the center, her steps measured but unhurried. A few eyes followed her path, some narrowing with calculation, others widening with surprise. Whispers fluttered like uncertain wings around the room. "Is she really here to lead this?" One voice murmured, barely audible but heavy with doubt. Another offered a subtle shake of the head, a silent commentary on the incongruity of her presence in this arena. Yet Serena's expression remained composed, a quiet fortress against the ripple of skepticism. She settled into her chair with a poised ease, the subtle click of her briefcase snapping shut, signaling a readiness to engage. The screen at the front flickered to life, casting a pale glow that illuminated the profiles of the participants, including hers, an unmistakable reminder that this was more than a symbolic appearance. This was a meeting where ideas would be tested, where strategies would be forged in the crucible of high expectations. Around the table, murmurs softened into a tense silence as the meeting's formalities began. The lead executive, a man with silver hair and a reputation for exacting standards, cleared his throat and welcomed everyone, his eyes briefly flicking to Serena with a mixture of acknowledgement and scrutiny. The opening remarks set the tone: focus, precision, and an unyielding drive toward results. Serena's attention sharpened, her mind already sifting through the layers of data projected on the screen. Her transition from athlete to business strategist had been deliberate, marked by years of rigorous study and mentorship. Each statistic, each market trend was a familiar terrain now, mapped as thoroughly as any tennis court she had mastered. Yet the challenge here was more intricate, the interplay of personalities, the subtle dance of influence and persuasion that defined corporate negotiations. Despite her calm exterior, Serena sensed the undercurrents swirling beneath the surface. Some colleagues exchanged glances that betrayed their uncertainty, their doubts not fully masked by professional decorum. She caught the faintest curl of a smirk from one of the younger executives, a silent question posed without words. Could this legendary athlete really hold her own among the titans of business? The weight of those unspoken judgments might have unsettled a lesser presence, but for Serena, it was a familiar opponent. Throughout her career, she had faced skepticism, about her style, her strength, her place in a sport that often resisted change. Here, in this room, she recognized the same pattern. A challenge to her legitimacy, a test of her ability to transcend preconceived notions. As the meeting progressed, the initial buzz of anticipation gave way to a focused intensity. Serena listened carefully, absorbing the nuances of each presentation, the subtle shifts in tone that hinted at underlying agendas. When it was her turn to speak, the room quieted further, the air thickening with expectancy. Her voice, measured and clear, cut through the tension like a well-placed serve. She began by acknowledging the collective expertise in the room, a nod to the years of experience embodied by her peers. Then, drawing on her own insights and the data at hand, she articulated a vision that was both strategic and innovative, a synthesis of calculated risk and bold opportunity. Her words carried the cadence of someone accustomed to pressure, someone who understood that victory required not just talent but resilience and adaptability. A few eyes widened, the initial skepticism giving way to cautious interest. The dynamic shifted imperceptibly as Serena navigated the conversation with a blend of humility and authority. She posed questions that challenged assumptions, offered perspectives that illuminated blind spots. The room, once charged with subtle disbelief, began to pulse with engagement. Outside the glass walls, the city's rhythm continued unabated, unaware of the quiet transformation unfolding within. The executives, hardened by years of negotiation and competition, found themselves re-examining the boundaries of expertise and leadership. Serena's presence, once an anomaly, was becoming a catalyst for a broader dialogue about potential and perception. As the meeting unfolded, the sleek conference room morphed from a stage of trial into a forum of possibility. The polished surfaces reflected more than light. They mirrored the shifting attitudes of those present, a testament to the power of presence and preparation. Serena's entrance, once met with curious glances, now anchored the conversation, a reminder that excellence could wear many faces. Amid the hum of strategic discourse, the subtle pulse of transformation began to beat steadily. The executives leaned in, their postures less rigid, their expressions more thoughtful. In that glass-walled chamber, where anticipation had first crackled like static air, a new energy was taking hold, one poised to redefine expectations and open doors previously thought closed. The room's temperature seemed to shift subtly as the initial intrigue surrounding Serena Williams' presence began to give way to a more charged and palpable tension. The sleek conference space, once humming with anticipation, now carried an undercurrent of skepticism that wove itself through the conversations and gestures of some attendees. Beneath the polished veneer of professionalism, doubts lingered like shadows, casting a quiet but unmistakable weight on the atmosphere. Serena had stepped into this arena with confidence rooted in years of mastery. Not only on tennis courts but in the complex world of business strategy she had been meticulously building. Yet, despite her poised demeanor and articulate contributions, the whispers of disbelief were not easily silenced. In the corners of the room, where eyes met and conversations flickered just out of earshot, murmurs took on a more pointed edge. She's a legend on the court, but does she really understand the nuances here? One executive muttered under his breath, the skepticism etched in his voice betraying an unwillingness to fully accept her role among seasoned corporate veterans. The words barely reached Serena's ears, yet their weight was unmistakable for those attuned to the subtle dynamics of doubt. Another voice, clipped and dismissive, queried softly, "Is this really a business meeting or some kind of publicity stunt?" The question, rhetorical and loaded, rippled through the group, inviting nods of quiet agreement from those reluctant to embrace a figure so visibly out of the expected mold. The insinuation was clear. Serena's presence challenged the established order, and not everyone was ready to accommodate the disruption. Across the table, a few colleagues exchanged glances laced with disbelief, as if trying to reconcile the image of the tennis champion with the demanding role of corporate strategist. Their skepticism was not merely about credentials or experience. It was a reflection of deeper, often unspoken biases that questioned whether a sports icon could navigate the intricate layers of business with the same acumen that had made her a champion in athletics. Serena was keenly aware of these undercurrents, though her exterior remained composed. The subtle dismissals, the sideways glances, and the barely concealed doubts formed a familiar tapestry, one she had encountered repeatedly throughout her career whenever she stepped beyond the boundaries others had defined for her. Yet, in this moment, she embodied a calm resilience, a refusal to allow skepticism to dictate her presence or diminish her voice. The lead executive, a man whose reputation for exacting standards preceded him, paused mid-discussion and offered a pointed comment about the complexity of the deal at hand. His tone, measured but edged with condescension, seemed to question whether Serena fully grasped the stakes. "This isn't a game of doubles," he remarked dryly, the metaphor hanging in the air with an unmistakable bite. A ripple of suppressed laughter fluttered briefly around the table, betraying the subtle dismissal contained within the remark. The message was clear. In this world, experience was currency, and Serena's fame as a sports figure was not enough to buy full respect. The comment underscored the divide between perception and reality, revealing how deeply skepticism had rooted itself among some participants. Yet, Serena neither flinched nor retaliated. Instead, she met the veiled challenge with a steady gaze and a measured response. Her voice remained calm, infused with quiet authority, as she acknowledged the complexity of the task and underscored her commitment to contributing meaningfully. There was no need for confrontation. Her presence and preparation spoke louder than any defensive words. Beneath the surface, however, the tension persisted. The room's energy shifted from cautious curiosity to a charged atmosphere where Serena's every word and gesture were scrutinized not just for content, but for proof of legitimacy. The skepticism was a test, a gauntlet thrown down by those reluctant to see beyond entrenched stereotypes and expectations. A younger executive, emboldened by the lead's subtle derision, leaned forward and asked a pointed question that carried an undercurrent of disbelief. "How do you plan to navigate the complexities of this market when your background is so different from ours?" The inquiry, framed as a genuine question, was laced with implicit doubt, a challenge to Serena's ability to bridge worlds. The room held its collective breath as Serena considered the question. Her reply was thoughtful, weaving together insights drawn from her strategic studies and her experiences beyond the tennis arena. She spoke of adaptability, continuous learning, and the value of diverse perspectives in navigating complexity. Her words, delivered with clarity and conviction, began to chip away at the walls of skepticism, though the resistance was far from dissipated. Among some of the senior executives, the skepticism manifested less in overt comments and more in subtle signs. A tightening of lips, a slight shift of posture, averted eyes. These nonverbal cues conveyed a reluctance to fully embrace Serena's presence as equal and legitimate. In their minds, the meeting was a test not just of ideas but of identity, of whether a figure outside their traditional mold could claim a seat at the table. Serena's grace under this quiet scrutiny was a testament to her resilience. She neither sought to confront nor to placate. Instead, she embodied a poised confidence that invited reconsideration without demanding it. Her calm professionalism became a silent counterpoint to the skepticism, a steady rhythm amid the discord of doubt. Outside the walls of the conference room, the city pulsed with its usual rhythm, oblivious to the nuanced battle unfolding within. Inside, the tension was a crucible, revealing the fragile boundaries between acceptance and exclusion, between recognition and dismissal. Serena's presence was a challenge to the status quo, a subtle disruption that unsettled assumptions and provoked discomfort in equal measure. As the meeting continued, the initial skepticism remained an unspoken barrier, a shadow hanging over the proceedings. Yet, Serena's steady engagement, her articulate contributions, and her refusal to be diminished began to shift the atmosphere imperceptibly. The room, once charged with dismissive attitudes, started to accommodate the possibility that the definition of expertise could be broader than tradition allowed. The executives, seasoned by years of negotiation and guarded by experience, were faced with a moment of reckoning. Could they transcend their doubts and embrace a perspective shaped by an unconventional path? The question lingered, unvoiced but palpable, as the meeting pressed forward into its critical phases. In this charged environment, Serena's presence was more than symbolic. It was a living challenge to the biases that often go unspoken in elite circles. The skepticism she encountered was not unique to this room. It echoed broader societal patterns where identity and credibility are too often entangled in assumptions and preconceptions. Yet, in facing this skepticism, Serena demonstrated a powerful truth: that legitimacy is not solely granted by pedigree or precedent, but earned through presence, preparation, and unwavering resolve. Her calm mastery in the face of doubt began to lay the groundwork for a shift in perception, even if that change was slow and cautious. The room's rhythm, once disrupted by disbelief, began to find a new cadence, one that acknowledged the tension but did not allow it to dominate. Serena's role in the dialogue became increasingly central, her voice a steady beacon amid the currents of doubt. The initial resistance remained, but beneath it, the possibility of transformation stirred quietly, waiting for the moment it might fully emerge. The atmosphere in the conference room had shifted from quiet tension to a more palpable undercurrent of judgment, as some participants openly questioned Serena Williams' presence. The initial curiosity and polite skepticism had given way to overt expressions of disbelief, their murmurs now audible enough to ripple through the polished space. The glass walls, which had once reflected only the city skyline, now seemed to echo the fractures beneath the surface. A collective uncertainty about the place a sports legend could truly claim among seasoned corporate strategists. Seated at the mahogany table, Serena maintained her poised composure, aware that the room's energy had subtly changed. Yet, she could not ignore the sharp glances and whispered doubts that circled like restless currents. A senior executive, his voice low but firm, leaned over to a colleague and muttered, "Is she really prepared to handle the complexity of this deal? She's out of her depth here." The words, though spoken in hushed tones, carried a weight that could not be dismissed as mere speculation. Another participant, a woman whose career had been forged in the crucible of corporate mergers, exchanged a glance with a peer and whispered, "I respect her achievements in sports, but this is a different arena. Experience matters here." Her comment was not just about credentials. It was a subtle assertion of the boundaries that defined their world, a reminder that some paths were considered more legitimate than others. The room's dynamic began to crystallize around these unspoken hierarchies, revealing the invisible barriers that segregated identities and experiences. Serena's presence challenged these unyielding structures, provoking discomfort in those who clung to traditional definitions of expertise. Their skepticism was less about her intellect or capabilities and more about the disruption her very identity represented. In response, a few voices, quieter but resolute, attempted to defend her place. "Her strategic insights are sharp," one young executive remarked, offering a tentative counterpoint. "We should consider the value of diverse perspectives." But these defenses were often met with polite nods rather than genuine acceptance, as if the room was still grappling with the unfamiliar. One particularly pointed moment crystallized the divide. The lead executive, whose authority shaped much of the meeting's tone, addressed the group with a measured but dismissive tone. "We must remember that this is a business forum," he said, casting a glance toward Serena. "Our decisions require experience rooted in this environment, not outside fame." His words, though couched in professionalism, underscored the skepticism that some harbored, implying that Serena's accolades in sports did not translate into the currency valued here. The implication hung heavily in the air, a subtle exclusion disguised as a statement of fact. It was a reminder that, despite her accomplishments, Serena was still an outsider in this world, someone whose legitimacy was questioned not by what she knew, but by where she came from. For Serena, this moment was familiar terrain. Throughout her career, she had encountered similar barriers, moments when her identity as a Black woman and athlete was scrutinized more harshly than her performance warranted. Yet here, in this room where the stakes were financial and reputational, the challenge took on a new dimension. It was not just about winning matches but about claiming space in a landscape that had long resisted diversity. Her response was measured, a demonstration of grace under pressure. "Experience is indeed vital," she acknowledged calmly, "and I have spent years preparing for this role, learning from experts and immersing myself in the complexities of this market. Her words were a quiet assertion of her commitment and capability, a bridge built from respect to challenge. She paused briefly, scanning the room with a steady gaze that invited reflection rather than confrontation. I believe that diverse experiences enrich our strategies and open doors to innovation, she continued, her tone both firm and inclusive. I'm here not to replace expertise but to contribute insights shaped by a unique journey, one that values resilience, adaptability, and continuous learning. The room responded with a mixture of silence and subtle shifts. Some eyes softened, a few skeptical expressions giving way to curiosity. Yet, the resistance was not entirely dissolved. The skepticism had taken root, and the path toward genuine acceptance was still unfolding. Amid the conversation, a younger executive, inspired perhaps by Serena's composed rebuttal, voiced a question that cut to the heart of the matter. How do you see your background influencing our approach to this deal? The query was less a challenge and more an invitation, a tentative step toward bridging the divide that had formed. Serena welcomed the opportunity, her voice steady and insightful as she outlined how her experiences had honed a perspective attuned to risk management, strategic patience, and the value of teamwork. She spoke of lessons learned on the court, how mental toughness and adaptability were as crucial in business as in sport. Her narrative wove together the threads of discipline and innovation, offering a compelling case for the relevance of her journey. As she spoke, the room's energy shifted subtly. The rigid lines of doubt began to blur, replaced by a tentative openness. Yet, beneath the surface, the tension lingered, a reminder that recognition was not merely a matter of words but of deep-seated perceptions and biases. In the moments that followed, conversations among participants reflected this duality. Some engaged Serena's points with genuine interest, probing further into her insights and experiences. Others remained guarded, their skepticism tempered but not extinguished. It was a delicate balance, a dance between acceptance and resistance played out in the language of business discourse. Throughout, Serena's demeanor remained composed, her responses thoughtful and measured. She neither demanded validation nor capitulated to doubt. Instead, she embodied a quiet strength that invited reconsideration without forcing it, a subtle yet powerful assertion of her rightful place at the table. The glass walls of the conference room, which had borne witness to the unfolding drama, now reflected a room in transition. The city beyond continued its relentless pace, unaware of the nuanced battles waged within these walls, battles not just of profit and strategy, but of identity, recognition, and the slow dismantling of entrenched assumptions. In this crucible of high stakes and higher expectations, Serena's presence was both a challenge and a catalyst. The open questioning of her legitimacy, while uncomfortable, served to illuminate the barriers that persist when perception lags behind reality. It was a reminder that the journey toward inclusion is ongoing, marked by moments of confrontation and dialogue. The executives, caught between tradition and transformation, found themselves at a crossroads. Could they transcend their doubts and embrace a broader definition of leadership? The question lingered unanswered as the meeting pressed onward, the echoes of skepticism mingling with the possibility of change. Serena's experience in this moment was emblematic of a larger story, a story about how excellence often defies easy categorization and how true recognition requires looking beyond surface expectations. Her poised navigation of doubt underscored the resilience needed to break through barriers that are as much about perception as they are about performance. As the dialogue continued, the room's energy held a fragile balance, a space where misjudgment and the seeds of understanding coexisted. Serena's presence, a testament to crossing boundaries, quietly invited all present to reconsider not only her capabilities but the very criteria by which they measured legitimacy. In that glass-walled chamber, against the backdrop of the city's unyielding rhythm, the unfolding narrative was clear. Recognition is not granted lightly, especially when it challenges the familiar. Yet, it is through such challenges that progress begins, and the contours of possibility expand. The subtle tension that had woven itself through the conference room began to ease, not with a dramatic gesture, but through the quiet, deliberate unfolding of Serena Williams' calm professionalism. As the meeting progressed deeper into the intricacies of the deal, the earlier skepticism that shadowed her presence gradually gave way to a growing recognition of her insightful contributions. The polished room, once thick with doubt, now subtly shifted its rhythm, embracing a new undercurrent of engagement. Serena's voice remained steady and measured, her words carefully chosen to convey clarity and depth. Each point she made was buttressed by thorough analysis and strategic foresight, reflecting the meticulous preparation that had become her hallmark. Rather than confronting skepticism head-on, she allowed her competence to speak, dismantling doubt piece by piece through an unwavering commitment to the task at hand. A pivotal moment came when Serena offered a nuanced perspective on the market's volatility, a topic that had stirred debate among the executives. She articulated the risks with precision, balancing caution with the calculated optimism that had always guided her decision-making. Her strategic suggestions were met with nods and thoughtful glances, the room's energy shifting from guarded to receptive. The lead executive, whose earlier remarks had cast a shadow of doubt, found himself leaning forward, eyes brightening with interest. "Your analysis brings an unexpected clarity," he admitted. The tone of his voice softened by genuine acknowledgement. It was a subtle but significant turning point, signaling a crack in the wall of skepticism that had surrounded Serena since her arrival. Others began to engage more openly, posing questions that invited her to expand on her ideas. Conversations that had previously skirted around her presence now centered on her insights, recognizing the value she added to the discourse. The atmosphere, once tinged with dismissiveness, evolved into one of collaborative inquiry. Serena responded with a blend of humility and authority, weaving together her understanding of the data with broader strategic considerations. She highlighted the importance of adaptive leadership in uncertain times, drawing parallels between the agility required in high-level sports and the flexibility demanded in business strategy. Her analogies resonated, bridging worlds that some had seen as disparate. Throughout the exchange, Serena's demeanor reflected a quiet confidence that invited trust. She neither sought to dominate the conversation nor to overshadow others, but instead fostered a sense of shared purpose. Her approach transformed the dynamic, encouraging openness and mutual respect among the participants. As the meeting unfolded, the initial skepticism morphed into curiosity and, gradually, into respect. The executives began to reconsider their assumptions, recognizing that expertise could emerge from diverse backgrounds and experiences. Serena's presence became less an anomaly and more a catalyst for fresh thinking. The subtle shift was palpable in the room's energy. The polished surfaces reflected not only the glow of the afternoon sun, but also the evolving attitudes of those gathered. Whispers of doubt gave way to engaged discussions, and guarded postures relaxed into collaborative stances. The glass walls, once a barrier, now symbolized transparency and openness. Serena's ability to navigate this transformation without confrontation spoke volumes. She modeled the very leadership qualities the meeting sought to cultivate: resilience, adaptability, and grace under pressure. Her contributions underscored the value of diverse perspectives in tackling complex challenges. The meeting's agenda moved forward with renewed momentum. Serena's strategic recommendations were integrated into the broader framework, shaping the pathway toward a successful agreement. Her insights complemented the expertise of others, creating a richer, more nuanced dialogue. In the moments between presentations, Serena engaged quietly with colleagues, listening as much as she spoke. These interactions built bridges, fostering connections that transcended initial doubts. Her approachable yet professional manner invited collaboration, softening barriers that had seemed impenetrable. The staff supporting the meeting observed the evolving dynamic with a mixture of surprise and respect. The early tension had given way to an atmosphere marked by constructive exchange and shared goals. The initial resistance to Serena's presence was now reframed as an opportunity for growth and learning. As the session neared its close, Serena was invited to summarize the key strategic points. Her summary was concise and compelling, weaving together the insights gleaned throughout the meeting. She emphasized the importance of unity and forward-thinking, calling on all participants to embrace innovation and inclusivity as drivers of success. Her concluding remarks were met with thoughtful nods and a respectful silence, a contrast to the murmurs of doubt that had accompanied her arrival. The room, once divided by skepticism, now stood united in purpose, ready to move forward with a shared vision. The lead executive offered a genuine smile as he acknowledged Serena's contributions. "Thank you for your thoughtful leadership today," he said, his tone reflecting a newfound respect. The gesture, though understated, marked a significant moment of recognition. In the aftermath, conversations among attendees revealed a shift in perspective. Many confessed to having underestimated Serena's business acumen, expressing admiration for her strategic insight and composure. The meeting became a catalyst for reevaluating preconceived notions about leadership and expertise. Serena's experience in this setting was emblematic of a broader truth, that initial judgments, shaped by stereotypes and biases, can be transformed through engagement and demonstrated competence. Her presence challenged the room to expand its understanding of who could lead and contribute meaningfully. The staff took note of the transformation as well, recognizing the importance of fostering environments where diverse talents could thrive. Plans for more inclusive practices began to take shape, inspired in part by the lessons of this meeting. As the sun dipped lower outside the glass walls, casting long shadows across the room, the sense of accomplishment was tangible. The meeting had not only advanced business objectives but had also quietly rewritten the narrative about potential and inclusion. Serena's composed grace throughout the session left an indelible impression, a reminder that leadership transcends background and is defined by vision, preparation, and resilience. Her ability to convert skepticism into respect set the tone for what was to come. In this moment, the conference room had become more than a venue for negotiation. It was a space where barriers were challenged and new possibilities emerged. Serena's journey, marked by quiet determination and strategic insight, was weaving itself into the fabric of this transformation. The executives and staff alike carried with them the subtle but powerful lesson that day, that true leadership is as much about breaking through doubts as it is about forging ahead with clarity and purpose. The meeting closed on a note of shared resolve, poised to translate the day's breakthroughs into lasting impact. As the meeting room's atmosphere eased from tension to a more reflective energy, conversations among the executives began to shift subtly but meaningfully. The initial doubts that had clouded Serena Williams' entrance now gave way to a growing intrigue, a curiosity sparked by the clarity and depth of her strategic insights. The polished surfaces that had once reflected skepticism now mirrored thoughtful expressions and engaged postures, signaling a collective reassessment unfolding within the glass-walled chamber. In small clusters around the expansive mahogany table, murmured dialogues took shape. Her perspective on market volatility was unexpectedly sharp. One senior participant remarked quietly to a colleague, the tone carrying a newfound respect. Another nodded in agreement, adding, "She brings a fresh approach that challenges our assumptions, and that's valuable." These exchanges, though discreet, marked a turning point, an unspoken acknowledgement that Serena's contributions had altered the room's dynamic. The ripple effect extended beyond whispered praise. Attendees began to revisit earlier judgments, reflecting on the biases that had shaped their initial impressions. The recognition that expertise need not be confined to traditional pathways stirred conversations about the limitations of their own frameworks. A younger executive, inspired by Serena's example, voiced this sentiment to a peer. "Maybe we've been too narrow in how we define leadership. There's room for diverse experiences to inform our strategies." This introspection was not confined to the participants alone. The meeting organizers, quietly observing the evolving scene, exchanged thoughtful glances. Claire, the event coordinator, noted in a hushed tone, "This experience is prompting us to rethink how we welcome and integrate different voices. It's a lesson in openness." Her words underscored a growing awareness that inclusion went beyond representation. It required genuine engagement and willingness to challenge ingrained perceptions. Serena herself moved gracefully through these shifting currents, her demeanor inviting connection rather than confrontation. She engaged colleagues with thoughtful questions, seeking to deepen the dialogue and bridge gaps in understanding. Her approach fostered an atmosphere where skepticism softened into curiosity, and curiosity blossomed into respect. During a brief break, she found herself in conversation with a senior strategist who had been among the most reserved earlier. "Your insights have sparked new ways of thinking for me," he admitted candidly. Serena smiled, acknowledging the importance of such exchanges. "It's about combining our strengths," she replied. "Diversity in thought and experience makes us stronger." The room's energy continued to evolve as the meeting resumed. Discussions became more collaborative, with participants building on Serena's ideas and weaving them into broader strategic considerations. The earlier barriers, though not entirely dissolved, were less obstructive, replaced by a willingness to explore new possibilities together. This shift was evident in the tone and content of the dialogue. Where once there had been guarded statements and cautious inquiries, now there was an openness to challenge assumptions and embrace innovative approaches. The executive's language reflected an emerging recognition that adaptability and inclusivity were not just ideals but practical necessities in a complex business landscape. Serena's ability to catalyze this transformation without overt confrontation was a testament to her leadership style. She modeled how grace and competence could dismantle skepticism, not by force but through persistent demonstration of value and respect. Her presence became a bridge, connecting diverse perspectives and fostering a shared sense of purpose. Behind the scenes, the staff reflected on the implications of the day's events. Claire and her team discussed potential adjustments to future meetings, ways to better prepare for and support the integration of non-traditional voices into high-level discussions. The experience underscored the need for intentional inclusivity, moving beyond token gestures toward substantive engagement. As the session progressed, Serena's role became increasingly central, not just as a contributor of ideas, but as a symbol of evolving leadership paradigms. Her journey from initial skepticism to growing acceptance mirrored a broader cultural shift taking place within the organization and beyond. The executives, seasoned by years of navigating complex deals, found themselves reevaluating not only Serena's presence but their own assumptions. The experience served as a mirror, reflecting the unconscious biases that had influenced their perceptions and opening a space for growth. In quiet moments between agenda items, conversations turned to the future, how the lessons learned could inform ongoing efforts to cultivate a more inclusive and dynamic leadership culture. The recognition that diverse talents enhanced collective success began to take root in earnest. Serena's influence extended beyond the immediate meeting. Her example sparked informal discussions among staff and participants alike about the importance of broadening definitions of expertise and leadership. These conversations hinted at a gradual but meaningful transformation in organizational attitudes. The room's transformation was subtle but profound. What began as a space marked by doubt evolved into a forum of possibility, where preconceived notions were challenged and new understandings emerged. Serena's presence, once an anomaly, had become a catalyst for reflection and change. As the day wore on, the energy in the conference room grew lighter, infused with a sense of shared purpose and renewed possibility. The executives' postures relaxed, their expressions brightened, and the dialogue flowed with greater ease and openness. Serena's composed engagement throughout the meeting had set a tone of respect and collaboration. Her ability to navigate initial barriers with grace and insight left an indelible impression on those present, inspiring a reconsideration of what leadership could look like. The staff, witnessing this evolution, recognized the importance of fostering environments where such transformations could take hold. Plans for mentorship programs and initiatives to support diverse leadership began to take shape, fueled by the momentum generated during the meeting. In the quiet moments after the session's close, conversations lingered on the themes of inclusion and growth. Participants expressed a collective commitment to challenge biases and embrace broader perspectives moving forward. Serena, reflecting on the day's journey, felt a quiet satisfaction, not in having silenced skepticism outright, but in having opened a door. The dialogue she had helped foster was a step toward a more inclusive future, where excellence was recognized in all its varied forms. The conference room, bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon light, now held the imprint of this transformation. The glass walls, once barriers of doubt, had become windows into a new era of understanding. As the executives and staff prepared to depart, The ripple effect of the meeting's shift in attitude promised to extend beyond these walls, into conversations, decisions, and cultures yet to be shaped. In this evolving narrative, Serena's role was not merely as a participant but as a catalyst, her presence and insight prompting a reevaluation of assumptions and inspiring a commitment to broader inclusion. The journey toward acceptance and respect was ongoing, marked by moments of reflection and dialogue such as this. The meeting had become a microcosm of that journey, a testament to the potential that emerges when openness replaces doubt. Amid the city's steady pulse outside, the conference room held a quieter rhythm now, one of possibility, growth, and the promise of transformation yet to unfold. The room, once heavy with doubt and guarded skepticism, now pulsed with a renewed vitality as Serena Williams took the floor to share not just her insights on the business at hand, but a broader vision infused with grace and advocacy. Her presence had already begun to weave a new narrative among the executives and staff, one that transcended commerce and strategy, touching on the essential need for diversity and inclusion in leadership. Now, as she spoke with eloquence and conviction, that narrative deepened, resonating in the minds and hearts of those gathered. Serena's voice, steady and clear, filled the space with a sincerity that commanded attention without demanding it. She began by acknowledging the varied paths that lead to leadership, emphasizing that excellence and capability are not confined to any single background. Our greatest strength lies in embracing the full spectrum of experiences, she remarked, her gaze sweeping around the room, connecting with each listener. When we open the door to diverse voices, we unlock innovation, resilience, and a richer understanding of the challenges we face. Her words were not abstract platitudes but born from lived experience, of breaking barriers on the world's most competitive stages, of confronting stereotypes, and of cultivating an unyielding spirit. Serena shared moments of vulnerability and triumph alike, inviting her audience into a space of reflection. She spoke of the quiet battles fought behind the scenes, the perseverance required to be seen and heard in spaces that were not always welcoming. The executives, many of whom had been entrenched in traditional corporate cultures, found themselves drawn into this narrative. The tensions of earlier moments softened as Serena's advocacy transcended mere rhetoric, becoming an invitation to reimagine leadership in its fullest form. Her eloquence carried the weight of authenticity, inspiring a collective reconsideration of deeply held assumptions. Throughout her address, Serena wove in examples of how diverse leadership had driven success in various fields, illustrating the tangible benefits of inclusivity. She highlighted the importance of mentorship and support systems, emphasizing that creating pathways for underrepresented talents was not just a moral imperative, but a strategic advantage. When we uplift others, she stated, we create a cycle of empowerment that fuels progress for all. Her message resonated especially with the younger executives, who listened with rapt attention, many nodding in agreement. For them, Serena's presence was not just symbolic. It was a beacon of possibility, a testament that barriers could be broken and new standards set. Her advocacy gave voice to aspirations that had often been marginalized, opening space for dialogue that extended beyond the confines of this meeting. The room's energy shifted palpably as Serena invited questions and reflections. A senior executive, previously among the skeptics, raised a thoughtful query about how the company might implement more inclusive practices without compromising its rigorous standards. Serena responded with nuance, emphasizing that inclusion and excellence are not mutually exclusive but mutually reinforcing. It's about broadening our definition of excellence, she explained, and recognizing that diverse perspectives enhance decision-making and innovation. Her answers sparked a flurry of engaged discussion among the participants, many eager to explore practical steps toward fostering a more inclusive culture. Ideas flowed: mentorship programs, diversity training, reevaluation of hiring practices, each suggestion building on the momentum Serena had ignited. The initial hesitance gave way to enthusiasm, as the room collectively embraced the challenge of transformation. Behind the scenes, Claire and the event staff observed this unfolding with a mixture of pride and resolve. The meeting had evolved from a test of acceptance into a catalyst for change, illuminating the path forward. Claire made mental notes, already envisioning how future events could be structured to sustain and deepen this commitment to inclusivity. Serena's grace and advocacy extended beyond her prepared remarks. Throughout informal conversations during breaks, she shared personal stories and listened attentively to others' experiences. Her openness fostered connections that transcended professional roles, humanizing the dialogue and reinforcing the shared humanity at the core of leadership. These moments of authentic exchange softened barriers and built trust, creating a foundation for ongoing collaboration. Colleagues who had once regarded her with skepticism found themselves inspired by her resilience and vision. The shift was not merely intellectual but emotional, a subtle yet profound transformation in perception. As the meeting drew to a close, Serena's final words lingered in the air, a call to action wrapped in hope and determination. "Our journey toward inclusion is ongoing," she said, "but together, we can create spaces where every voice is valued and every talent nurtured. That is how we build not just successful businesses, but a better future." Her address was met with sustained applause, a rare and heartfelt acknowledgement that transcended formalities. The executives and staff rose, their expressions reflecting a collective awakening, a recognition that leadership is as much about empathy and advocacy as it is about strategy and results. The ripple effect of Serena's message extended beyond the room. Conversations continued in hallways and offices, as participants grappled with their own roles in fostering inclusive environments. The meeting had planted seeds of change, promising to influence decisions and policies in the days ahead. Serena's advocacy also resonated on a personal level with many in attendance. Her ability to articulate the intersection of identity, challenge, and leadership offered validation and inspiration to those who had long sought representation and voice. The meeting became a moment not only of business but of cultural significance. The staff, emboldened by the meeting's success, began discussing initiatives to support ongoing dialogues about diversity and inclusion. Plans emerged for workshops, speaker series, and mentorship programs designed to sustain the momentum Serena had sparked. The commitment was tangible, reflecting a shift from awareness to action. Meanwhile, the executives reflected privately on the lessons learned. Some acknowledged the discomfort that can accompany change but recognized its necessity. Others expressed a newfound openness to re-examining their own biases and expanding their definitions of leadership. Serena's presence had challenged assumptions and expanded horizons, reminding all that leadership is enriched by the multiplicity of experiences and voices. Her advocacy was not a momentary flourish but a lasting imprint on the organization's culture and aspirations. Outside, the city's relentless pace continued, but within the glass walls of the conference room, a quieter, profound transformation had taken root. The seeds of inclusion and respect had been sown, nurtured by Serena's grace, eloquence, and unwavering commitment. As the participants dispersed, the echoes of her message reverberated, a call to embrace diversity not just as a goal but as a guiding principle. The meeting had become a turning point, a narrative of possibility that would shape conversations and actions far beyond its walls. Serena's advocacy, marked by strength and warmth, had illuminated the path toward a more inclusive and dynamic future. The executives and staff carried with them a renewed sense of purpose, ready to translate words into meaningful change. In this moment, the conference room was more than a venue. It was a crucible of transformation, where leadership was redefined and the power of inclusion was celebrated. Serena's voice, steady and inspiring, would continue to resonate in the hearts and minds of those present, guiding the ongoing journey toward equity and excellence. In the quiet aftermath of the meeting, as the polished conference room emptied and the city's distant hum seeped back into prominence, the staff and executives found themselves grappling with the resonance of the day's events. The air, once thick with skepticism, now held a reflective stillness, a space where introspection began to take root. Among the team responsible for orchestrating the gathering, a sense of responsibility mingled with newfound awareness, a recognition that the encounter with Serena Williams had catalyzed more than just a business discussion. It had spotlighted the need for deeper cultural change. Claire, the event coordinator, lingered by the glass wall, her gaze distant but thoughtful. The seamless flow of the meeting had belied the undercurrents that had swirled beneath the surface, And now, in the quiet, the implications pressed upon her with clarity. "We need to do better," she murmured to herself, a resolve settling in her voice. The realization was acute. Protocols and procedures alone were insufficient to bridge the gaps of perception and bias that had emerged. Gathering her team in a small conference room adjacent to the main hall, Claire initiated a candid conversation. A debrief that transcended logistics and ventured into the realm of values and inclusion. The team exchanged observations, some expressing surprise at their own initial judgments, others acknowledging discomfort at witnessing the subtle biases that had influenced the meeting's early dynamics. One staff member reflected aloud, "I never thought about how assumptions could cloud our ability to recognize expertise." Serena's presence challenged all of us to confront that. The admission sparked nods around the table, a collective acknowledgement that awareness was the first step toward change. Claire steered the dialogue toward actionable insights. "We must embed training that sharpens our awareness of unconscious bias," she emphasized. "Recognition isn't just about names and faces. It's about understanding and valuing diverse experiences and identities." The conversation unfolded with a sincerity that underscored the team's commitment to growth. Beyond the immediate staff, similar reflections echoed among the executives. In private discussions, several leaders confessed to having underestimated Serena's business acumen, recognizing how preconceived notions had shaped their perceptions. These admissions were not easy but marked a pivotal moment of self-awareness. An executive, who had been among the more reserved during the meeting, shared his thoughts with a trusted colleague. "I realized I was quick to judge based on her background rather than her ideas. It's a blind spot I need to address." His words highlighted the pervasive nature of such biases, even among seasoned professionals. The organization's leadership took note of these reflections, understanding that fostering inclusivity required intentional effort beyond isolated events. Plans began to form for comprehensive training programs focused on unconscious bias, cultural competency, and inclusive leadership. The goal was clear: to create an environment where recognition and respect were grounded in a deep understanding of diversity's value. Serena's engagement during the meeting had sparked these conversations, serving as a catalyst for institutional introspection. Her calm and composed navigation of skepticism had laid bare the challenges that persisted, while her grace had inspired a collective willingness to evolve. In the days following the meeting, Claire worked closely with human resources and diversity officers to design initiatives that would embed these lessons into the company's culture. Workshops were proposed, focusing not only on awareness but on practical strategies to foster inclusivity in decision-making processes. Mentorship programs aimed at broadening leadership pipelines were discussed, reflecting a commitment to sustained change. The staff also recognized the importance of ongoing dialogue. Regular forums were planned to provide safe spaces for conversations about identity, bias, and leadership. These gatherings aimed to deepen understanding and build empathy, ensuring that the momentum sparked by Serena's presence did not dissipate. Among the executives, a similar commitment to self-reflection took hold. Several volunteered to participate in coaching sessions designed to explore and mitigate unconscious biases. The willingness to engage in this personal work signaled a shift toward authentic inclusion. Serena's experience became a touchstone in these discussions, a lived example of the challenges and possibilities inherent in embracing diverse leadership. Her story was shared in training sessions and leadership meetings, illustrating the real-world impact of assumptions and the transformative power of openness. The organization's communications team crafted narratives around these initiatives, highlighting the company's dedication to fostering an inclusive culture. These messages aim to signal both internally and externally a genuine commitment to change, moving beyond performative gestures to substantive action. Within the staff, the reflections extended to everyday interactions. Colleagues became more mindful of their language and behavior, striving to create a more welcoming environment for all. The lessons learned from the meeting with Serena permeated daily routines, from casual conversations to formal evaluations. Claire observed these shifts with cautious optimism. The path ahead was long and complex, but the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths was a promising start. "This is about more than one meeting," she noted during a team check-in. It's about transforming how we see each other and the potential we each bring. As these efforts took shape, the company began to see subtle but meaningful changes. Decision-making processes incorporated more diverse perspectives, and leadership development programs expanded to include candidates from varied backgrounds. The culture, once narrowly defined, began to embrace a broader, richer tapestry of talent. Serena's influence, though indirect, remained a guiding force. Her poised navigation of doubt and her advocacy for inclusion had ignited a spark that continued to fuel progress. The organization recognized that the journey toward genuine inclusivity required ongoing vigilance and commitment. In reflecting on the experience, Claire and her team understood that recognition was not static but a continual process. A daily practice of seeing beyond surface identities to the depth and complexity of each individual's contribution. The meeting had served as a mirror, revealing both shortcomings and possibilities. The executives, staff, and leadership collectively embraced this challenge, aware that the work was not without discomfort but essential for growth. The narrative of the meeting with Serena Williams became part of the company's evolving story, a testament to the power of reflection, humility, and intentional change. As the city outside the glass walls carried on its relentless pace, within the organization a quieter revolution was underway. It was one marked by openness, learning, and the gradual dismantling of barriers that had long impeded true inclusion. The seeds planted in that conference room promised to grow, nurtured by the commitment of those willing to see, listen, and transform. The journey was ongoing, but the foundation was set. A foundation rooted in the lessons drawn from a moment when skepticism met grace, and recognition began to take on new meaning. The conference room, now quiet and bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon light, had witnessed more than just a business meeting. It had become the stage for a moment of cultural reckoning and transformation. As the final agenda items concluded, Serena Williams rose to deliver a closing address that would not only seal the day's achievements but also cast a compelling vision for the future of leadership within the company and beyond. Her presence commanded attention without a hint of pretense. Serena's voice, steady and resonant, filled the space with an eloquence born from experience and conviction. She began by acknowledging the collective efforts of everyone present, weaving gratitude with a call to action. Today, we have navigated complex challenges and explored opportunities with insight and rigor, she said, her eyes meeting those of the executives and staff alike. But beyond the numbers and strategies lies a deeper imperative: to cultivate leadership that reflects the richness of our diverse world. The room, once marked by undercurrents of skepticism, now absorbed her words with a reverence that transcended formality. Serena's address was not merely a summary of the day's business. It was a profound reflection on the nature of leadership, inclusion, and the courage required to embrace change. She spoke candidly about the barriers she had faced, not just on the tennis courts but in every arena where identity and expectation intersected. Her narrative was a testament to resilience and the power of perseverance. Yet, it was also an invitation to see beyond assumptions, to challenge the status quo, and to recognize the untapped potential that diversity brings to the table. Leadership is not confined to a single story or background, Serena affirmed. It is shaped by the willingness to learn, to listen, and to uplift others. When we honor diverse experiences, we build organizations that are not only stronger but more innovative and compassionate. Her words resonated deeply, sparking a palpable shift in the room's energy. The executives, many of whom had begun the day with guarded skepticism, now found themselves reflecting on the broader implications of their roles. The invitation to embrace inclusivity was both a challenge and an opportunity, a moment to recommit to values that transcend profit margins and market shares. Serena's address also highlighted the tangible benefits of inclusive leadership. She shared examples from her own journey and from organizations that had thrived by fostering diverse teams. Her insights underscored that inclusion is not a mere ideal, but a strategic imperative that drives creativity, agility, and sustainable success. The room responded with attentive silence, punctuated by thoughtful nods and the occasional murmured affirmation. It was a collective reckoning, a shared acknowledgement that the path forward required courage and commitment from every individual and every level of the organization. As her address drew to a close, Serena issued a call that was both inspiring and pragmatic. Let us be leaders who break barriers, who listen with empathy, and who create spaces where every voice is valued. The work ahead is ongoing, but together, we can transform challenges into opportunities and build a future defined by respect and innovation. The applause that followed was sustained and heartfelt, a rare moment of genuine connection that transcended the usual formalities of corporate meetings. The executives rose, their expressions reflecting a mix of admiration, resolve, and a newfound sense of purpose. The lead executive, whose initial skepticism had been palpable, stepped forward to offer a personal acknowledgement. Serena, your leadership today has not only enhanced this meeting, but has illuminated the path forward for us all. Thank you for your vision and your courage. His words, spoken with sincerity, marked a significant turning point, an embrace of the values Serena had so eloquently championed. Conversations flowed freely in the moments that followed, the room abuzz with reflections and renewed commitments. Participants discussed ways to integrate the day's lessons into concrete actions, strategies to embed inclusion into hiring, mentorship, and leadership development. The meeting had evolved from a transactional event into a transformative experience. Serena engaged with colleagues and staff alike, her demeanor warm and approachable. She listened attentively as others shared their own insights and aspirations, fostering connections that promised to extend beyond this gathering. Her presence had become a catalyst not only for change but for community. The staff, energized by the day's progression, began planning follow-up initiatives to sustain the momentum. Workshops, speaker series, and collaborative projects were discussed, each designed to deepen understanding and foster inclusivity at every level. The meeting had ignited a commitment that would ripple throughout the organization. As the participants prepared to depart, there was a collective sense of optimism tempered by the recognition that the journey was ongoing. The day's events had laid a foundation, a shared vision and a renewed dedication to embracing diversity as a source of strength and innovation. Serena's closing address had transformed the meeting from a routine business engagement into a moment of cultural significance. Her words echoed in the minds of those present, a reminder that leadership is as much about vision and courage as it is about strategy and execution. Outside the glass walls, the city's relentless pace continued, indifferent to the quiet revolution that had unfolded within. Yet within this space, a new narrative had taken root, one where inclusion, respect, and shared purpose would guide decisions and inspire action. The meeting's legacy was no longer confined to the contracts signed or the strategies devised, but extended into the ethos of the organization itself. Serena's presence and words had become a beacon, illuminating the path toward a future where leadership embraced the full spectrum of human experience. In the days that followed, the impact of her address was evident. Discussions among executives, staff, and stakeholders reflected a deeper awareness and a commitment to embed inclusion into the company's DNA. The meeting was cited as a turning point in internal communications and strategic planning. Serena's role as both a leader and advocate had redefined expectations, challenging the organization to rise to new heights. Her ability to transform skepticism into engagement underscored the power of presence, preparation, and authentic dialogue. As the meeting concluded, the atmosphere was charged with possibility. The executives, inspired by Serena's vision, were poised to translate words into actions that would shape the company's future. The staff, motivated by the day's transformative energy, prepared to support these initiatives with dedication and care. The glass walls of the conference room, which had witnessed this evolution, now symbolized transparency and openness, a fitting backdrop for a new chapter in leadership. Serena's closing address had not only sealed the day's success, but had also ignited a movement toward a more inclusive and dynamic organizational culture. In this moment, the meeting transcended its original purpose, becoming a catalyst for lasting change. Serena's voice, steady and inspiring, would continue to resonate, guiding the organization as it embarked on the ongoing journey toward equity, respect, and excellence. The days following the pivotal meeting unfolded with a renewed sense of purpose throughout the company's corridors and boardrooms. The commitment sparked by Serena Williams' presence and her compelling call for inclusivity began to take concrete form, weaving itself into the fabric of the organization's evolving culture. What had started as a singular event now blossomed into a series of initiatives designed to transform principles into practice. A deliberate and thoughtful embrace of diverse leadership and inclusive excellence. The leadership team convened shortly after the meeting, their discussions marked by a palpable urgency and a shared recognition that change required more than words. They outlined a series of mentorship programs aimed at nurturing talent from underrepresented backgrounds, seeking to create pathways that had previously been overlooked or inaccessible. These programs were envisioned not as isolated efforts but as integral components of a broader strategy to cultivate a leadership pipeline reflective of the company's values and the diversity of the markets it served. Human Resources, working in tandem with the Diversity and Inclusion Office, began to revise hiring practices with an eye toward reducing unconscious bias and expanding candidate pools. Job descriptions were re-examined to ensure they emphasize skills and potential rather than narrowly defined credentials. Interview panels were diversified, and training on inclusive evaluation became mandatory for all hiring managers. The commitment was intentional, signaling a shift from passive acknowledgement to active cultivation of diversity. Serena's role extended beyond her initial participation. She engaged in ongoing dialogues with leadership and emerging talent, offering mentorship and support rooted in her experiences navigating spaces that had not always been welcoming. Her involvement lent both visibility and credibility to the company's efforts, inspiring confidence that these initiatives were more than performative gestures. Workshops and seminars proliferated, focusing on topics such as unconscious bias, cultural competency, and inclusive leadership. These sessions were designed not only to raise awareness but to equip employees at all levels with practical tools to foster a more equitable and supportive environment. The training emphasized the value of varied perspectives in driving innovation and resilience, reinforcing the connection between inclusion and business success. Feedback mechanisms were established to monitor progress and gather insights from participants, ensuring that initiatives remained responsive and effective. Surveys and focus groups provided spaces for honest reflection, highlighting successes and identifying areas for improvement. This commitment to transparency and accountability underscored the company's dedication to sustained transformation. The ripple effect extended to daily operations as well. Teams began to adopt more collaborative approaches, actively seeking input from diverse voices and valuing differing viewpoints. Decision-making processes became more inclusive, fostering a culture where questioning assumptions and challenging norms were encouraged rather than stifled. The company's leadership recognized that true inclusion required a fundamental shift in mindset and behavior, not just policy. Serena's advocacy also inspired storytelling initiatives within the company, highlighting the journeys and achievements of employees from varied backgrounds. These narratives celebrated resilience, innovation, and leadership, creating a tapestry of experiences that enriched the organizational identity and fostered a sense of belonging. The stories became a source of inspiration and a reminder of the company's evolving commitment to diversity. Externally, the company's renewed focus on inclusive leadership resonated with clients and partners. Communications emphasized the strategic advantages of diversity, positioning the organization as a forward-thinking leader in its industry. This alignment of values and business objectives enhanced reputation and opened doors to new opportunities, reflecting the tangible benefits of embracing inclusivity. The mentorship programs, in particular, began to yield promising results. Participants reported increased confidence, expanded networks, and clearer pathways to advancement. The presence of role models like Serena Williams provided tangible proof that traditional barriers could be overcome, fueling ambition and engagement among emerging leaders. Within the leadership ranks, executives reflected on the personal growth stimulated by these initiatives. Many acknowledged the challenge of confronting unconscious biases and the ongoing work required to foster truly inclusive environments. This self-awareness marked a significant cultural shift, signaling readiness to lead by example and champion diversity at all levels. Claire and the event team continued to play a vital role, designing forums and gatherings that nurtured dialogue and connection. These spaces became incubators for ideas and collaboration, reinforcing the company's commitment to a culture where every voice mattered. The lessons learned from the initial meeting with Serena Williams remained a touchstone, guiding the evolution of these efforts. The company's journey was far from complete, but the momentum was undeniable. The integration of mentorship, revised hiring practices, training, and storytelling created a multifaceted approach that addressed both structural and cultural dimensions of inclusion. The organization was laying the groundwork for sustained progress, recognizing that excellence flourishes in environments where diversity is not only accepted but celebrated. Serena's involvement remained a beacon throughout this transformation. Her ability to bridge worlds, athletics and business, public prominence and behind-the-scenes strategy, embodied the expansive vision of leadership the company aspired to cultivate. Her story became intertwined with the company's narrative, symbolizing the power of resilience, adaptability, and advocacy. As months passed, the company began to see measurable impacts. Diversity metrics improved across recruitment and promotion, employee engagement scores rose, and innovation initiatives benefited from the infusion of varied perspectives. The culture, once narrowly defined, was evolving into a dynamic ecosystem where inclusion and excellence were mutually reinforcing. The executives, staff, and leadership embraced the ongoing nature of this journey, aware that vigilance and commitment were essential to sustaining progress. The lessons drawn from initial skepticism and subsequent transformation informed a culture of continuous learning and adaptation. Serena's legacy within the organization was more than symbolic. It was a catalyst for enduring change. Her presence and advocacy had ignited a movement that transcended a single meeting, embedding inclusivity into the company's ethos and operations. The story of how the company had navigated the challenges of perception and embraced the potential of diverse leadership became a celebrated example within the industry. It served as inspiration for other organizations grappling with similar dynamics, illustrating the tangible benefits of intentional inclusivity. Within the company, this narrative fueled ongoing efforts to expand leadership pipelines, foster innovation, and cultivate environments where every individual could thrive. The intersection of vision, action, and commitment had transformed aspirations into reality. As the organization moved forward, Serena's involvement continued to inspire reflection and progress. Her journey from doubt to recognition mirrored the company's own evolution, a testament to the enduring power of resilience, grace, and advocacy. The initiative sparked by that defining meeting promised to shape the company's future for years to come, proving that excellence transcends backgrounds and that true leadership embraces the full spectrum of human experience. The story of Serena Williams closing the deal despite the initial doubt became more than a chapter in corporate history. It evolved into a celebrated example within the industry, emblematic of resilience, transformation, and the breaking of long-held stereotypes. Her journey through skepticism to recognition did not merely alter perceptions within a single meeting room. It sparked a wider conversation about leadership, identity, and the untapped potential that lies beyond conventional expectations. Word of the meeting's impact spread steadily through industry circles, carried by whispered admiration and formal commendations alike. Serena's role was cited in conferences, leadership forums, and diversity summits as a case study in the power of presence and preparation to transcend barriers. Her ability to navigate an environment initially resistant to her inclusion underscored a universal truth. Excellence cannot be confined to predetermined molds. Within the company, Serena's story became woven into the organizational narrative, a touchstone for ongoing efforts to challenge biases and expand definitions of leadership. Training modules incorporated her experiences as a vivid example of overcoming doubt with grace and competence. Mentorship programs referenced her journey to inspire emerging leaders who faced their own hurdles in traditionally exclusive spaces. Conversations shifted from questioning her place to celebrating what her presence revealed, a need for continual reevaluation of the criteria by which leaders are recognized and valued. The story illuminated how assumptions can blind institutions to valuable perspectives and talents, creating blind spots that hinder innovation and growth. Serena's example inspired a cultural shift not only within her own company but in the wider industry. Organizations began examining their own practices, acknowledging the subtle and often unconscious barriers that exclude capable individuals. The narrative fostered a collective commitment to dismantle these barriers through intentional policies and inclusive mindsets. Leadership development programs across sectors embraced the lessons drawn from Serena's experience, emphasizing the importance of diverse pathways to leadership. The story became a rallying point for advocates of equity, a testament to the transformative possibilities when organizations open their doors wider. Media coverage further amplified the significance of Serena's journey. Profiles and interviews highlighted her strategic acumen and leadership qualities, challenging the narrow perceptions that had once limited her recognition beyond sports. Her voice became a platform for advocating diversity and inclusion, reaching audiences far beyond corporate boardrooms. Within the company, the ripple effects of her presence continued to manifest. Hiring practices evolved, mentorship flourished, and the culture grew more welcoming to varied talents. The initial skepticism that had greeted her arrival became a distant memory, replaced by respect and a commitment to sustaining the inclusive environment her example had helped cultivate. Employees at all levels found inspiration in Serena's story, drawing strength from her resilience and the validation of their own diverse experiences. The narrative fostered a sense of belonging and possibility, encouraging individuals to envision themselves as leaders regardless of background or prior assumptions. Executives reflected on the lessons learned, recognizing the ongoing work required to maintain momentum and deepen inclusion. The story served as a reminder that progress is neither linear nor guaranteed, but must be nurtured through vigilance and intentionality. Serena's journey also highlighted the importance of humility within leadership, the willingness to listen, to learn, and to acknowledge one's own biases. Her grace in the face of doubt set a standard for how leaders can embody strength without arrogance, fostering environments where all voices can thrive. As the company celebrated milestones in diversity and inclusion, Serena's role was honored not simply as a guest or participant, but as a catalyst for change, a symbol of what is possible when barriers are challenged and new narratives embraced. The legacy of that meeting extended into future generations of leaders, who carried forward the spirit of resilience and openness that Serena embodied. Her story became part of the company's heritage, a beacon guiding ongoing efforts to create equitable and dynamic workplaces. In the broader industry, the example set by Serena and the company's response fostered networks of collaboration and advocacy, connecting organizations committed to advancing inclusion and redefining leadership standards. The ripple effect crossed borders and sectors, influencing policies and practices on a global scale. Amid these transformations, Serena remained engaged, lending her voice and experience to initiatives that continued to push boundaries and expand possibilities. Her journey from doubt to recognition became a living testament to the power of perseverance, vision, and authentic leadership. The meeting that once seemed a singular event had blossomed into a movement, one that challenged assumptions, elevated diverse talents, and reimagined what leadership could be. Serena's experience illuminated the path forward, reminding all that excellence transcends expectations and appearances. As the story circulated, it inspired countless individuals and organizations to reflect on their own practices and perceptions, urging them toward greater inclusivity and respect. The narrative became a catalyst for dialogue, learning, and action that continues to shape the evolving landscape of leadership. In this ongoing journey, Serena Williams stands not only as a champion on the court, but as a champion of inclusion and transformation, a living embodiment of the enduring power of dignity, grace, and unyielding commitment to breaking barriers. Her story, celebrated and shared, endures as a beacon of hope and possibility, inspiring generations to come to challenge limits, redefine norms, and lead with authenticity. The legacy she forged transcends any single achievement, becoming a testament to the limitless potential of embracing diversity in all its forms.